Welcome to Hidden Histories.
The year was 1978. Jim Jones led 900 followers of his cult, the People's Temple, to commit suicide in Guyana. The first ever arcade video game, Space Invaders, took over pool halls, bowling alleys, pizza parlors, and convenience stores, laundromats, movie theater lobbies, family Mexican restaurants, and arcades. Jim Davis's groundbreaking cartoon Garfield, about a morbidly obese, lasagna-loving tabby, debuted in newspapers across the nation. And John Travolta was burning up the silver screen with both Grease and Saturday Night Fever dominating the box office. The world's most successful independent filmmaker, who had reshaped the landscape of American cinema the year prior, was about to pass on the empire he had built. He was selling it to the Walt Disney Company for a single Disney dollar. He also had with him a metal box containing his father's frozen head. He planned to return the head to the Disney representative and then go out to his car and end his life. All of the dreams of the young bearded filmmaker had come true as he had mustered the courage to pursue them, and the monkey was finally off his back. Disneyland was founded by a man named Walt Disney in Anaheim, California in 1950, a place where fantasy and reality overlapped for thrill seekers from all over the world. It was a new and novel idea, the theme park, and would become a great American institution that would be aped throughout all 50 states in many different shapes. But Disneyland was not the country's first theme park. The country's first theme park was founded in 1948, across the street from the future location of Disneyland. It was called The Dunes, a simple restaurant with a small backlot wooded area featuring a miniature steam engine train ride. The Dunes didn't have much on Disneyland, but it did have an amazing monkey named Jerry. Jack Jackson, owner and curator of the Dunes, famously said, "Walt ripped me off, but I'll tell you what, he doesn't have Jerry." Jack and his wife Janice raised Jerry as their child. Jerry was toilet trained, ate at the dinner table, dressed himself in the morning, and put himself to bed at night. The chimp amused garden guests in the daytime, watering plants and digging holes around the 14-acre wood after hours. 2 years later, Disneyland was an instant hit and a worldwide phenomenon, racking up over 100,000 visitors a day and making a vault full of money for Walt. However, the Dunes and Jack Jackson's special monkey Jerry continued to pull in about 300 visitors a week, 0.001% of Disney's daily attendance. Disney was furious. He needed to strike back. On October 5th, 1950, Disney dictated to his secretary, Fay L. Bechtel,
"I'm going apeshit here, Fay. Write this down. That goddamn jerk Jackson is making a monkey out of me, jacking our visitors with that damn dirty ape Jerry. Are you getting this?"
"Yes, sir."
"Good. I want to put a bullet in that monkey's skull. Blow his head clean off. Maybe I need to get a hold of some of my associates from my misspent youth."
Walt Disney was born December 1st, 1900 as Walter Dursney in Dover, Delaware to Donald and Daisy Dursney, both small-time criminals and grifters. Like most children of his day, his life was far from a barrel of monkeys. He failed to finish the 4th grade, and to supplement the family's income at the age of 9, he was sent off to work in a factory that produced oversized novelty buttons. In his troubled teens, he was described as a disturbed delinquent by over a dozen doctors of psychology. In his early 20s, Dursney fell in with a wretched hive of scum and villainy. The infamous murderer and bank robber Mickey the Rat Rooney, and the rest of his gang, the Rat-Keteers, Minnie the Mooch, Geppetto, the twin brothers Chip and Dale, and the notorious hitman, McDuck. Dursney became the firebug for the gang and was given the nickname Tinkerbell because if Dursney tinkered with your building, you were sure to hear fire bells. In 1947, Dursney was convicted of starting the Berkeley Fire. That fire started on Christmas Eve at the Starlight Hotel and consumed 640 structures, including 584 homes. He was sentenced to only 2 years in prison because he was a white male. During his incarceration, Dursley began studying meditation and the power of visualization under the tutelage of fellow inmate George Goofy Garris, a man whose horrifying appearance, both dog-like and horse-like, disguised his kind heart and deep spirituality as much as his conviction for mass murder did. In a prison diary entry dated October 5th, 1949, Dursley wrote,
"Visualize it. Visualize it. Like Goofy taught you. Wish. Wish upon a star, a mouse, a dog, a duck, a mountain made of space, another made of thunder, splash, a teacup where you are the tea, a flight to Neverland, a voyage under the sea, a magical kingdom, the happiest place on earth, the happiest place on earth."
Despite having only 1 week left in his sentence, Dursley escaped from prison on December 5th, 1949, and immediately changed his name to Walt Disney to evade the authorities. Then, with a small loan from Berkeley, California real estate entrepreneur Wilbur Smith, he executed his plan to create Disneyland. On the evening of October 23, 1950, Walt's old associate, McDuck, reported to Disney's private suite, located in Disneyland's ultra-secret Club 33. The two made their way over to the dunes. As they approached the front entrance to the park, Disney suddenly demanded that he be the one to pull the trigger. McDuck handed over his revolver, and they proceeded. They found Jerry in the back of the property, digging a hole. Jerry the monkey had no idea he was digging his own grave. The following morning, the headline of the LA Times read, "Dunes Burns Down, Jerry the Monkey Missing, and Owner Jack Too." The very next day, in a publicity stunt that would send his destiny across the stars, the LA Times ran a front cover photo of Disney with Jerry the monkey. The headline read, "Disney Saves Jerry." However, it wasn't the real Jerry in the photo. In an attempt to hide his heinous murder and get a few more visitors to Disneyland, Disney had purchased an elderly, lethargic, and untrained monkey named Yoda from his friend H.R. Pennybacker, who owned a private hunting ranch in Texas. The story took on a life of its own and quickly became international news. The world wanted to see Jerry the monkey digging holes and brushing his teeth at Disneyland. With press from around the globe on their way to the Magic Kingdom to cover Walt's heroic deed, Disney knew the incapacitated old monkey wouldn't fool anyone in person. With a monkey wrench thrown into his plans, he would need to hatch another scheme. George Lucas was born in Berkeley, California in 1941 to Leah and Lando Lucas, owners of a small engine repair shop, Grease Monkeys. They lived in a small motel called the Starlight. His early childhood was happy, but in what could only be described as a nightmare before Christmas, on December 24, 1947, his parents were tragically killed in a fire. Without any close relatives to care for him, Lucas became an orphan. The only surviving document from his youth was a report card noting George as curious and inquisitive, with a tendency to monkey around. Only 3 years later, Walt Disney was in the market for an orphan. He needed a young child, and quick, to don a monkey suit and perform as Jerry the monkey.
God damn it, Faye. Are you getting this? What do I look like? A monkey's uncle? I need a 9-year-old child. I don't care if it can read. It just has to be toilet trained, eat at the dinner table, water plants, dig holes, dress itself in the morning, and put itself to bed at night. And it has to be skinny enough to fit into a monkey suit. No fatties. Oh. And I need a monkey suit.
George Lucas was purchased for $3,000 from the 6th Street Morningside Orphanage and immediately placed in a monkey suit that he would wear for the remainder of his youth. The press ate it up. They bought the cheeky ruse hook, line, and sinker. The patrons of the park were enamored. George, or rather, Jerry, roamed freely around the park, watering plants, digging holes, and occasionally tossing a small child 10 or more feet into the air over and over as they giggled with glee. On one occasion, a small boy named Marty became so enamored with Jerry he followed him around the whole day, foregoing all of the rides and usual monkey business the park was so known for. Extraordinarily, the two became pen pals. George's home life, however, was no fantasy land. Lucas's room at Disney's massive estate was a cage that he was forced to share with Yoda, the aging orangutan. Instead of doing the humane thing and putting Yoda down, Disney had kept him on when he discovered that he had a talent for monkeying with electronics and used the elderly ape to repair robots and empty trash receptacles around the park. Yoda became George's only friend, aside from his pen pal Marty. It was monkey see, monkey do as he learned how to live as an ape. A truly symbiotic relationship. Lucas would carry the old weak ape on his back when he needed to go repair a robot in the park, and Yoda would pick fleas out of George's monkey suit to eat. George's childhood was a wild ride. His relationship with his father was a Matterhorn of complexity. Disney was sometimes extremely loving, but at other times could be cold enough to freeze the balls off a brass monkey. The two were inseparable, but George was never allowed to speak or take off his monkey suit.
I keep forgetting that you're not my real dad. I keep forgetting that I am not a real monkey. I keep forgetting things weren't always this bad. I keep forgetting. Every tiny tear just dries up inside my nest. Do I need a beer? You know you don't have to rest. How will I know when we're having fun that you think of me like a legitimate son? Tell me how come I keep forgetting that you're not my real dad. I keep forgetting that.
On his worst days, Walt would make George reenact the murder of Jerry the monkey. On the 14th of September, 1964, Lucas's longtime companion, roommate, and mentor, Yoda, peacefully passed away in his sleep. George lived in the cage with his corpse for 3 days before it was discovered. On the 18th of September, just after midnight, Disney took Lucas from his cage and brought him to the middle of Main Street, USA, where he had built a fire that Yoda's body rested on. In his 1977 memoir, Going Bananas, My Life in the Hollywood Jungle, Lucas wrote,
As we stood silently in the chilly night in front of the pyre, Daddy stared blankly into the darkness and said,
When you're curious, you find lots of interesting things to do. Children are people, and they should have to reach to learn about things, to understand things. Just as adults have to reach if they want to grow in mental stature.
I had a bad feeling about this. My dark father handed me an aged book of matches. I understood that I was meant to ignite the blaze beneath my old friend and mentor. I lit the match and held it to the kindling and then watched as my old teacher burst into flames. As I stepped away from the blaze, my curiosity got the better of me, and I looked down at the matchbook that I held in my hand. The name on the cover was plain to see, the Starlight Hotel. Daddy bent down, the flames reflected in his eyes, suddenly full of madness. He could only imagine the look of terror that was concealed beneath my monkey mask. He uttered two simple and chilling words.
Small world.
The year was 1964. The conflict in the Vietnam jungle was heating up. The Beatles held the top 5 spots on the American pop charts. The animated cartoon Magilla Gorilla debuted to instant success, and Disneyland was the king of the theme park. George Lucas had been living as Walt Disney's pet monkey Jerry for the past 14 years. Disney had just forced Lucas to strike a match and light the funeral pyre of his longtime companion and monkey mentor, the orangutan Yoda, who had died, unlike the real Jerry the monkey, of natural causes. In the midst of this mournful moment, it had just been revealed to Lucas that Disney, his adopted father, had been the phantom menace behind the unspeakable tragedy of his early childhood.
Had my daddy just told me that he had started the fire that had killed my parents? I looked back down at the matchbook in my tiny paw, and then back into Daddy's eyes, and he said,
Your eyes can deceive you. Don't trust them.
The matchbook was from the very motel we had lived in, and where they had perished. It took all of my courage to speak, but I muttered a sentence muffled by my monkey mask. But Mama and Papa. Daddy again looked at me with his eyes simultaneously kind and cruel, and said simply,
No. I am your father.
George played the role of Jerry the monkey for 9 more years, forbidden from speaking in the presence of others while grappling with the knowledge that his daddy had murdered his biological parents. On October 5th, 1973, Walt Disney passed away. According to the death certificate, he had failed to smoke cigarettes after each meal, but was otherwise as fit as a gorilla. Still cruel, even in death, Walt left nothing to George in his will except his cryogenically preserved head, with the eyes frozen open to, quote, keep an eye on him, and give George something to think about should he ever decide to spank the monkey. In December of 1973, with Walt's frozen head out of sight in his freezer, George finally worked up the courage. He stepped out of the tiny monkey suit that he had been forced into as a child. He found that he was a full-grown man with a full-grown beard, and unsurprisingly, his hair had already begun to prematurely gray at age 32, quickly earning him the nickname the Silverback from his therapist. Finally able to use the full force of his voice, George found a new hope and decided to start a band. He put an ad in the paper looking for musicians who had also been forced to live as monkeys. He received only one reply from a man named Peter Tork, a drummer, whose own experience of living as a primate had perhaps been even more terrifying than George's.
E6B.
The Monkees were formed. The band met with moderate success. They had a minor hit, I Keep Forgetting Every Tiny Tear, and the duo went on to tour, opening up for the Flapjacks.
I keep forgetting that you're not my real dad. I keep forgetting that I am not a real monkey. I keep forgetting things weren't always this bad. I keep forgetting every tiny tear just dries up inside my mask. Do I need a beer? You know you don't have to ask. How will I know when we're having fun that you think of me like a legitimate son? Tell me how come I keep forgetting that you're not my real dad. I keep forgetting.
On an off day, George decided to attend a matinee of the 1974 remake of King Kong. The film would be the missing link in George's creative consciousness. From the opening frame, George was engulfed with emotions he had never felt. The story of a misunderstood man in a monkey suit moved him to his core. He hadn't expected a science fiction film to resonate with him and reflect his life story so poignantly. As the audience filtered out and the credits began to roll, he found himself alone in the theater, weeping. Through his bleary eyes, he looked up at the screen, and he was amazed to see the name of his old pen pal. Marty had directed this moving masterpiece. Later that night, still weeping in his hotel room, Lucas wrote a letter to his old pal.
Dear Martin Scorsese, you may only remember me as Jerry, Walt Disney's monkey. We were pen pals in the late 50s, you and I. Now, prepare yourself for a mild shock. I am not, in fact, a monkey. I am a full-grown man. Walt Disney, who most consider a national treasure, was my father, and he was a murderer and a horrible monster who forced me to live in a monkey suit. Anyway, I am writing to tell you I was incredibly moved by your cinematic masterpiece, King Kong. My dream is to turn my life story into a movie like yours. Your friend, then and now, George Jerry Lucas.
The next morning, Lucas issued a press release that the monkeys were no more. He told Peter Tork,
I am going to make the most important film of all time, about my life. I do have a small part for you, a part that you will love. You will be a natural.
Lucas had a story he had been itching to tell his whole life. The Star Wars was a space opera packed with rocket ships, laser blasters, laser swords, bounty hunters, and space monsters of every shape and size. It was about an orphan named Lucas, or Luke for short, who would come to be played by the robot of the young martial artist master named Chuck Norris. His parents, Owen and Beirut, had perished in a horrible fire set by an evil robot named Darth Vader, or in German, Dark Father. Lucas further worked through his childhood demons by introducing a character based on his old cage mate and constant companion, Yoda. The character, a small hairless ape, was a wise old master of mystic martial arts who rode on Luke's back, and secrets of an ancient religion whispered to him. The part that he had promised his drummer would require Peter Tork to once again don a monkey suit, this time playing Chewbacca, a man forced into servitude and a monkey suit by the Caribbean pirate Han Solo. Robots C-3PO and R2-D2 provided much-needed Laurel and Hardy-style comic relief in the lighthearted second act. The third and final act bordered on hardcore PG-13 material when Lucas introduced the tiny evil cannibal monkeys, the Ewoks. In one particularly shocking scene, a bounty hunter delivers the cryogenically frozen head of the Caribbean pirate Han Solo to the disgusting gangster Jabba the Hutt, who would come to be portrayed on screen by Andy Serkis, donning a version of his classic Madden troll suit. The story reaches a fever pitch in its last 5 pages when Darth Vader tries to trick Luke into believing that he is Luke's father. Luke, with the help of the Caribbean pirate Solo, his girlfriend, the robots, and Chewbacca then tie up the robot Darth Vader and kill him by crushing his head, only to reveal, in a shocking finale, that he was a man all along. That spring, with the help of his old pal Marty and a loan from venture capitalist Wilbur Smith, production began on The Star Wars.
Somewhere in space, this may all be happening right now. Executive producer Willard Smith and George Lucas, the man who grew up as Walt Disney's pet monkey, bring you an adventure unlike anything on your planet. The Star Wars.
You're coming in too fast!
The story of an orphan and the robot who claims to be his father, and the universe.
Are you getting this? Write this down.
It's an awesome archetypal adventure of action and more. It's a spectacle 12 parsecs ahead of its time.
I'm C-3PO, and this is R2-D2.
Hello.
Oh, my friend!
a complex allegory of adventure and allegations.
That was a good lunch.
And fathers.
When I drop this kerchief, you will kill the monkey.
And primates from 1,000 worlds. Star Wars. 23 years in the making, and it's coming to your galaxy this summer.
Shooting began on October 5th, 1975, on a soundstage in Hollywood, California. It was a simple and effortless production, as Lucas's clear direction and articulate and natural dialogue made the actor's job a breezy jungle cruise. One aspect of the film Lucas did struggle with was Scorsese's insistence that the picture's protagonist, Luke, have a love interest. What ended up on screen provided several psychologists substance for a series of published, peer-reviewed papers on the subject of psychosexual soundness in those raised as simians. The character of girlfriend Leia was named after Lucas's own mother and was both the protagonist's lover and sister. Additionally, the actress Lucas cast as Leia bore a shocking resemblance to the only woman who had ever said more than 2 words to him that weren't about a man, Walt Disney's secretary, Faye L. Bechtel. In addition to casting traditional humans, Lucas did hire one monkey actor named King Louie for the film to play the famously unmotivated dog-like garbage can R5-D4. Although the monkey was placed inside the robot's hollow body, what's unclear is exactly what King Louie did, as the robot was operated entirely by remote control. One factoid from the production has proven controversial in recent years. Lucas adopted 300 orphans from the former British Empire to play the roles of the cruel and nasty Ewok monkeys, and then, upon wrapping the shoot, immediately placed them back up for adoption. 10 years later, in 1987, Warlock Davidson, who played one of the Ewoks, a devious hat thief named Wicket, said in an interview with People magazine,
"One day, I was complaining about how odd it was, my Ewok costume, and how we didn't get any bathroom breaks when Daddy, for 3 weeks he was my daddy, you know, me and about 299 other blokes. Daddy says, 'You think that's bad? I wore a monkey suit for 23 years. Didn't know a bugger could last that long in a sweaty get-up like that.'"
The Star Wars premiered on May 4th, 1977. The special effects-laden tentpole would change the face of cinema forever, creating the popular leading man trope, the Curious George, that has appeared in hundreds of films since, as other brave monkey-raised filmmakers have come forward to tell their stories. In addition to the popular sexual position, the Bi-Curious George, that has also appeared in hundreds of films since. The picture was also the first to license merchandise for toys, games, and books, based on its writer and director. Lucas's hero's journey had come to an end. With the circle now complete, Lucas signed the papers, put the box containing his father's frozen head on the table, and said,
To paraphrase my father and captor, Walt Disney, when you wish upon a star, make an ape and start a war. Thank you.
He bowed to the Disney representative and the attending reporters and exited the press conference to duel with his fate in the front seat of his car. He had told his story and the world had rewarded him. Nay, they had understood him. And that was all he had ever wanted. Once comfortably seated in the driver's seat of his '55 Chevy Deuce coupe, George picked up the prop blaster lying on the seat next to him, put it to his temple, and pulled the trigger. In his 1992 semi-autobiographical science fiction novel, A Mannequin's Betrayal, the main character George tells his robot friend Doya,
Hey, I hired the best special effects artists on the planet for that movie. I had no idea those things didn't really shoot lasers, okay? And I was also raised as a monkey. There are some things I just don't understand.
Freed from his bondage and given a new lease on life, Lucas would go on to write and direct a series of mind-bending art films under the pseudonym David Lynch, including the Academy Award-winning Best Picture, Ape-Pocalypse Now. In 1985, Lucas and Torque both donned their monkey suits once again for the first Disney The Star Wars production, The Star Wars Christmas Special, for ABC television. It is consistently one of the highest-rated Christmas specials each year. Lucas is now retired and living comfortably in his Skywalker Sanctuary in Northern California. The Walt Disney Company took The Star Wars to new levels of success by turning it into a series of amazing and universally adored animated films.